Hello, everyone, and welcome back to
The Lo and Zo Show.
Today, we are going to talk to you all about holding the end vision for yourself in mind. And this is a powerful way to really step into all of the power that you have within to create what you want in your reality.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think it's something that, even though we've heard it a million times, hold the vision, trust the process, it's still something we have to continue to bring ourselves back to, that truth.
Yes.
And seeing it play out in your life really, really helps for you to be able to have that trust. But I know for me, I get muddled up in the middle steps all the time, and I do it a lot less now, and things are changing for me a lot faster now because I'm holding that vision. So today we're going to talk about how to do that, why it is the key to you to create big results in your life. And let's get started. I'm Lo.
And I'm Zo, and this is The Lo and Zo Show.
We're coaches and entrepreneurs who firmly believe that an abundant mind is the key to an abundant life.
On this podcast, we're going to be talking everything from how to manifest more money, travel, success in business, and beyond,
to overcoming the blocks that are holding you back,
to rewiring your brain so you can easily attract whatever it is you want the most in life.
If you haven't already, be sure to join us inside our Facebook community, the Queen Mind Tribe, for daily tips, mindset hacks, manifesting tricks, and more that'll allow you to build the confidence you need
to manifest the abundant AF life you deserve.
Now let's get started. Okay, guys. So a few weeks ago, we did an episode called Whatever You Repeatedly Visualize Must Materialize. So again, this is kind of a episode building on that. But we wanted to exclusively or specifically talk about the importance of holding the end vision for what it is that you wish to create for yourself in your life, right?
Yes. Yeah. So the powerful thing is when you have the end goal in mind is that you build this momentum and you begin to continually build that momentum the more and more that you decide to focus your thoughts, focus your feelings, focus your emotions, your visualizations, everything on that end goal for yourself.
Yeah. And when we say the end goal, what we're talking about is because I think we create this end goal for ourselves, which is let's say a super successful business, making a few $100,000s a year in my online business. So that's the end goal. But then we create all these shorter term end goals, which is like a successful launch or, this many people on Instagram or whatever. And it's not that you can't do that and still be successful. It's that we start giving more power to those, shorter term goals, which aren't actually end goals.
Yeah.
And we start getting attached to them, right?
Yes.
Rather than letting go of the how of that end goal, right?
Yeah.
And that comes from a place of control. Comes from a place of okay, I want this super successful online business, and I'm going to try and control how it comes by manifesting little steps along the way, which never freaking works anyways. I've tried so many different tactics for producing a specific launch result per se. Never once has it actually happened with me getting the specific number of people or the specific number of income through that launch.
Yeah. And it's because it comes back to that trying.
Yes.
And that doing versus being.
And trying to control, which is lack.
Yes, exactly.
Not trust. Yeah.
And you're expending all of your energy on, say, these little goals. Let's say if it was a launch and you wanted to have X amount of subscribers or followers to relay this message to, and you wanted to have X amount of content ready, so-and-so, just really focusing on those symbols and those numbers types of things, that actually takes away your power from the vision that you might have for yourself of having that, few $100,000 business per year. But instead, you're taking that energy away from that end goal and putting it onto these little projects, let's say, little project manifestations.
Yes.
So then your energy is dispersed. Yeah. And when your energy is dispersed, it's left you, right? And then you become too attached to, let's say, some of these goals. If they aren't met, you don't feel like you're going to be successful and you don't feel like you are successful.
Yeah. And I know for me, watching quite a few entrepreneurs over the last few years and what has been success, the ones that are very successful, when they talk about where their mindset was at, every single one of them who say hit $1 million inside a few years has talked about how they were so connected to that end goal of I just knew that I had $1 million business before I'd even made my first 100, right? $100.
Eyes on the prize, guys.
Yeah, eyes on the prize. And I want to bring this back to a Neville Goddard quote. I've been talking on all of my social medias about Neville Goddard, and I'm just obsessed with him. And we've I think we've spoken about him on
Dr.
the podcast.
Joe, we haven't forgotten about you.
We love Dr. Joe Dispenza, but right now we're on a Neville Goddard kick. But yeah, no, there'll always be a special place in our heart for Dr. Joe, especially since he's alive and Neville Goddard is not. But he has a quote that I use all over the place. I can't remember if I've talked about it on this podcast or not, but and that is acceptance of the end wills the means to that end. So by that, what he means is when you repeatedly play in your mind a desired outcome as if it's happening now, so let's say it's your first $1 million in business or your first $100,000 in business, but let's go big, because like I actually have this theory about playing really big in terms of your visualizations, because you have to surrender the how, because you can't figure it out in your head. So let's say you want $1 million business. The more that you practice that in your mind, the more you run through an end vision. So let's say, like what Neville always preaches, and this has really worked for me in the past, is coming up with a sort of 5 to 10 second visualization in your head that you play over and over and over again that represents the, like, you having manifested that end result, right? So if it's $1 million, maybe there's like a specific post you're going to put on Instagram about your $1 million business, or maybe it's like something like a car that you want to buy that represents you hitting that 7-figure goal for yourself. Whatever it is, make it quick and run it over in your head over and over again. So I've shared before many times about how when I went to Italy, I had a visualization of me walking through the streets of Rome, getting payment notifications to my phone, even though I had no idea how that was going to happen. And I had been trying really hard to make money online. It was like not working. So I started just getting invested with that vision. And very quickly, the means to that vision came to me in an idea for a program that totally took off. So you can do it with anything. The acceptance of the end wills the means to that end. By acceptance, he means playing it over and over till you get to the point where it feels like it's real.
Where you're in belief about it.
You're in belief about it. It's almost like Zoe has said before, like you'll visualize a certain amount of money for such a long time, then you come out of that visualization or that meditation or whatever, and you're almost like in disbelief that it's not there because it felt so
I'm like, where's my $1 million?
Yeah, literally.
Like I've been hanging out with this $1 million for a really long time, so it's
yeah, exactly. But you are in your subconscious. Really what that acceptance means is like you have imprinted it on your subconscious, and you only need to do this once, guys. You only need to get to that point where it feels real for you at like a very sort of being level, and then you just have to let it go and allow for the ideas to come to you, that clarity to come to you, that the means to the end will be willed to you.
Yes.
Or I, mix that up a little bit, but you know what I'm trying to say. And it'll be either through an idea from someone else, an idea coming to you, quote unquote, divine download, as I often talk about.
Yeah.
Just like an intuitive nudge that's like, ooh, I need to do this, like that inspired action, right? And so what we do so much of the time is we get caught up in, like, we know what the long-term result is, but that's not what we're picturing. We're picturing the steps that we think are going to get us there.
Yeah. And when things aren't showing up for you, that's when you might feel a little bit of lack or scarcity. And then you try to create these smaller goals within your larger goal, and that's when you get distracted essentially from the end goal.
Yes.
And the more and more distracted and you leave the path of that end goal, the less likely it is for that to even manifest in the end, because you've almost self-sabotaged in a way for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And like one thing we hear people talk about all the time in the manifestation world is having unwavering faith, right? And trusting the process completely. And sometimes that might mean that things get worse before they get better, or that it looks like things aren't working out, when in reality that's like a step to get you to that end goal. But we have built like the faith that Zoe and I have when it comes to like trusting the process, and we're not always perfect at it by any means, but I definitely feel like my faith muscle from a year or 2 years ago is like just so developed. It's come through education and then seeing things play out in my reality. But we want to bring this back just quickly to the course that we're launching, which is, again, like having faith in that process, holding that end result in your mind, and then allowing the series of events that are going to unfold to bring you that manifestation. That's where all your power is. So you're able to have that faith when you understand your power in creating whatever it is that you want to create.
Yeah.
Right?
And the key thing there is, like Laura said, allowing.
Yes.
Allowing implies that you're not resistant to the process as it unfolds, because it may get worse before it gets better, but you won't know that until in hindsight.
Right.
Until you've had your goal and it's in your hands, or you're living or you're experiencing it. You look back on things in your life and you can recognize, I see how the things played out the way that they did, fortunate or unfortunate as they were, it all had its place. So just, you have to be open to allowing things to naturally unfold and not getting yourself attached to different scenarios that may not reflect your end goal, but they are a part of that process.
And this is one thing that we want to like really bring home for you guys. If you imagine something over and over, right? Whatever you repeatedly visualize must materialize. If you imagine it over and over and over, you like visit it every day for even just 5 minutes, get emotionally involved with that vision, it will come to pass. It has to come to pass so long as you don't get too in your head about the fact that it's not coming and then sabotage the whole thing. If you visualize something enough times to the point where it really starts to feel familiar to you, it will play out sooner rather than later, right? Yeah. So I think that that's a really important thing to experience for yourself. And like one great thing to do is just test this with smaller things like, you know, a free coffee from someone or something like that. Visualize that happening maybe a few times and then watch how that does play out in your reality so that you can start to understand what your power is, right? We do have we were supposed to say this at the beginning of the episode, but we do have a wait list for our upcoming course. But it really like kind of comes back to everything that we're talking about in regards to understanding your power so that you can trust the process leading you to that end result.
Yes, because when you know how powerful you are, it is inevitable that everything that you want and desire will be yours if you put the time to seed that visualization, seed that experience for you. And like Laura said, like just it could be a small visualization, like walking through the streets, or you might be getting into the car that you're going to buy yourself, but you know, 3 to 5 seconds long, and just keep it on a loop as you visualize it and just really feel it and have it represent the end. Like that's the thing too, is just like have it be the end. Neville often talks about if there's a relationship that you really want with a specific person, and imagine yourself looking down at your hand from first person and seeing the ring on the finger. So seeing the ring on the finger, this is a symbolization that you've made it to the end goal, which is like a loving, happy marriage, and or like somebody is talking to you about the marriage. So like it's already been a done deal. Let's say I'm calling Laura, I'm engaged. You know, like that can be my visualization.
I think you brought something up there that's really important to note, which is the first person bit, right? If whatever your visualization is, experience it from like your body, right? Rather than picturing yourself experiencing it, just because that kind of messes with the way in which we create in the quantum, if you will. But yeah, this is all kind of coming back to like understanding your power and then how you use that power to create virtually anything that you want. That's what we're focusing our upcoming course on. We do have, in case you guys missed our last episode, we do have a wait list in case you want information on that. It's launching in the next month. But yeah, I wanted to ask you, Zoe, like, when was a time when you had a big end goal in mind that you kept visiting, even though you had like literally no idea how it was going to unfold, and that you kept the faith for?
Yeah, I would say that was Rome, because I was in a very dark place. I knew you at that time. We've talked about it in like a couple other podcasts, I think, too. But just I was at this corporate job. I was unhappy. I was spending hours and hours of my day there, right? So the time that I had on my own to visit my happy spiritual visualization place was minimal. And I just felt really dragged down. But I ended up just deciding to take a stand for myself, and I quit my job and I bought a one-way ticket to Rome, right? So I had 3 months out. So in this 3 months, I had absolutely no clue how I was going to make this happen myself. I had no idea where I was going to go in Rome, how I was going to live, who I was going to live with, what I was going to do, how I was going to make this work. Like everything was a giant question mark, but I took like one action and I kept the end goal in mind. Like, okay, I bought my ticket to Rome, so I'm going. Right. Now I'm going. So I kept Rome in my mind, and all I just visualized for myself was walking through the streets of Rome happy, because I wanted to be happy on a more regular basis than I was presently at that time. So that's what I held in my mind. And of course, everything fell into place. Like I ended up getting a couple of freelance clients. I ended up looking online and finding an incredible au pair family, and it was 15 minutes away from the Colosseum. Like everything just really fell into place more magically than I could have expected, and just perfect, right? But if I spent my time and my energy working on little manifestations, like I'm going to spend my time working on manifesting more freelance clients before I even get there. That's a scarcity mindset. That's me not trusting the process. Right. That if I continually visit Rome in my mind and play with those emotions and play with that experience and have it become its own reality, if I was to spend my time focusing on little manifestations, like I'm saying, my energy would be dispersed. My energy would not be on the end goal, and I probably would have somehow sabotaged it for myself.
And
but
I think
eyes on the prize.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's something like so key to point out there, which is like For you, it was believable that all of that could happen. And that's why it was easy for you, or not necessarily easy, but you were able to keep your eyes on the prize, as you've said, and trust the process, because moving to Rome was something that you could conceive of doing. And I want to encourage our listeners to look for times in their life where they probably unknowingly kept their eyes on the prize, kept their mind on that end goal, kept the faith, because whatever it was that you were working towards was believable for you. We only sabotage the how when it's like, okay, I want to have my first 10K month and we've never even made 5K. It's like you start doubting that, you start getting into the how, because you can't conceive of it happening. Zoe had already lived in Rome for a few months, right?
I visited for 2 weeks.
Sorry, you just visited. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. But even that had been something that you'd manifested that was sort of similar. Right?
Yeah.
Kind of.
I guess you could say I manifested a Euro trip where I went to Rome.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So things that we are able to create for ourselves with this process, which is holding on to the end process, the end vision rather, and trusting the process that gets you there. All of us have done that in big ways as well, whether it was buying a house or getting a job or making a lot more money or meeting the love of your life. Those were all things where you were focused on the end result and didn't worry too much about the how, because the end result seemed conceivable to you, even though you didn't know how it was going to pan out.
Yeah. And I would say, just hearing you reflect that back, it's a huge act of self-love to believe in yourself.
Right.
So work on your belief in yourself. If there's something that you want, that you're drawn to, but you can't understand how this could come to fruition for yourself, just go to work on, why can't I have that? Why shouldn't I have that? Just really focus on the fact that you have this one life and live it out and grant yourself what you want, really.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
And I think that you can gain more of that self-love or self-belief by looking at, where have I produced results in the past? Where was it safe for me to trust myself? And then how did things work out as a result, right?
Yeah.
And building on that. And generally, we create results, or we manifest results in areas of our lives where we have that confidence, where we have that trust. So for some of you, that will be in your career. For some of you, that will be in your relationships. That will be in your business, whatever. But wherever you hold the most confidence or the most ability to trust yourself is where you are naturally lining your vision up with that end that you want to see manifest, and then allowing the steps to get you there. And we all have these areas where we're just like, well, I don't really know how it's going to happen, but it is. And then it's like, okay, but go and make 10K a month in your business. And you're like, oh, you get so overwhelmed by trying to figure out how it's going to work. And it's just because that's an area where you don't yet have that self-trust. But I just want to have people understand or witness that process as it has already unfolded, where there was an outcome that they wanted and they were visualizing it. They were lining themselves up with it, and they let go most of the time, not all the time. You, I'm sure, still had doubts around Rome. Of what if I don't have the money, or what if this doesn't work, or whatever. You don't have to be completely in alignment or in complete trust and faith. You just have to be predominantly in the belief that it's going to work out.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. Just imagine it being a tipping point, but your positive thoughts are just so much more powerful than negative emotions. So just trust and keep feeding that end goal, no matter what is. If your world feels like it's falling apart around you and whatever else, just eyes on the prize, eyes on the prize. You can just keep reminding yourself of that. You can probably recognize that from the past too, as we did acknowledge earlier in this episode. You can look back on your life and be like, I don't know why these bad things were happening to me in the time that they were, but looking back, it all made sense.
Totally. Well, and it's interesting for me, looking back at the growth of my business, because it was definitely something I tried to control the how of initially. I tried to say, okay, I'll launch this program and then I'll launch this program, and I've seen other people do things like this, so maybe that's what I should do. And it was all me in the how and not in the end result. And until I made that switch, very few things worked. I'd made very little money. I was working like crazy and things just weren't panning out. I was going more and more into debt because I was investing in coaches and stuff like that. And until I put more energy into the end result instead of or over the how, things didn't, I quantum leapt as soon as I did that within a number of weeks. It was actually
How
crazy.
did you make that switch, Laura?
Through my education, through reading, actually Dr. Joe, love you, Dr. Joe, was the book that I was reading at the time, which was Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, where he talks about the observer effect, which we've talked about in previous episodes.
So it's almost like once you started to have an education that you could believe in, you were buying into.
Here's what it is. Once I shifted the way I viewed myself in relation to my reality, which is what we talked about last episode, it's what we're building our next course on, nothing worked because I didn't really understand where my power was and how to use it to create.
Right.
Once I understood that through education and then applied it, I quantum leapt from like $1,000 a month up to my first $15K month in 6 weeks because of focusing on the end and trusting the process. And that trust, you guys, came through the understanding that I have in terms of how our thoughts create. I didn't just people telling me, oh, have faith, never did anything for me because on like an ego level, I didn't know that it was safe to.
Yeah. So, but reading that and having that education gave you the ability to detach.
Exactly. Detach and completely trust the process. Like, okay, all I have to do is visualize the end and look for ways in which this has already worked for me, which at that time were smaller. Yeah. But yeah, in fact, every time I experience a big up level in my business, it's because I had to, through what I know, through just the content that I've consumed and reading from people like Dr. Joe and Neville and all that kind of stuff. Every time I've experienced a quantum leap, it came through focusing on the end, letting go of the how, which isn't easy.
It's almost like you have to take on a full-time job of just regulating your own emotions from not going into panic
the
how. or the how and trying to create little just manifestations in the process. Go. Yeah.
It was funny actually because in the middle of that like quantum leap, I actually one day was downtown and I'd had the idea for the program that totally blew things up for me. But I was again then starting to get into the how of the actual launch. And I was downtown and I just had this like strong like intuitive nudge come through me, which was like let go. And I went that day and got on a whim tattoo that says let go, which I didn't have any tattoos at the time, and like after the fact totally freaked out because I'd gone like 30 years of my life without branding myself, and then all of a sudden was like, oh my god, what if I regret this? But anyways, but it's funny because even then, even after I'd had this big idea, through letting go of the how, I was still getting involved with the how. I still do. I still want to like control outcomes. I still have to practice this let it go, let it go, let it go, trust the process, right? And I think what's so freeing in that is like when you're focused on the end result, you don't have to get involved in the how because it's going to be what it's going to be. So let's say you focus on $1 million business and now you have a few different ideas for for a program rather. And you launch all of those ideas sequentially. One might flop, one might be a total breakthrough, but they are both what they need to be within that greater vision, right? Rather than trying to control each one, which will probably guarantee that they both flop. Yeah. And you'll delay that end result from coming to you. Like maybe the first one needs to be a failure in order for the second one to be a total hit or a total, success. But you won't know if you're not continuing to place your focus on that end result that you're wanting.
Yeah, they're all stepping stones across the river. Yes. And across the river is the goal.
Exactly.
You just have to trust that you're going to put your foot down on the next stone and it's going to be the right one no matter what happens.
If you're focused on, I mean, that's actually such a good like metaphor. You keep your focus on the where you're going across the river.
Exactly. Because, you could, that there's stepping stones to get there. You just have to trust that when you put your foot down, that you're not going to step in water.
Yeah, absolutely. So we really just kind of wanted to like bring a little more like focused attention on trusting the process, focusing on the end result, holding that vision in mind, and then allowing the steps to line up whatever they may be, and being in complete trust of that process.
Yeah, and just to really focus on your self-perception and the power that you have, because when you are more focused on these smaller manifestations like we've mentioned throughout here, this is when you kind of give away your power, right? That's when you start to feel less powerful because you're waiting on certain tipping points to happen all around you instead of just being focused and channeling all that energy and momentum into what it is that you truly want rather than these little things that are going to bring you moments of fulfillment or happiness along the way.
Well, and I'm just going to relate this real quick to this course that Zoe and I are working on that we've been talking about, which we're so excited about. And it came to us. We had been at WeWork a few weeks ago and we were doing a visualization meditation together. Like there's like a meditation room at WeWork, and we went and we have similar intentions, like a similar end goal that we're both currently working towards. And later that night, an hour later, we were walking back to Zoe's apartment for dinner, as we have like romantic Lo and Zoe dinners all the time where we talk about the quantum and, all the things. And we had this idea between us come out of a conversation right?
It just downloaded.
It just like downloaded and we were like, this is what we're doing. And it was like so clear. That's always the way that these big ideas
It's so
come.
easy and effortless.
It's so easy. And like planning out the course and everything, planning out like the content leading up to the course, everything has been, it's just like all fallen into place. But what we both immediately started to do was say, how many people do we want in this course? And then how do we start visualizing that? Which is doing exactly what we're telling you guys not to do. What we need to do and what we're going to be doing is focusing on that end result that had that idea manifest in the first place.
Exactly.
Right?
Because we were in a relaxed, fun state of mind.
Well, and like this is the acceptance of the end wills the means to that end. The end that we were accepting was the one that we were visualizing that day. It both had to do with money goals for each of us. And like specific purposes behind the money that we'd like to bring in the first, couple of months of the year. And so the means has been willed. Getting all these words jumbled up. But the means to that end has been willed, except that then we immediately shift the end and being like, okay, well, we want this many people.
Yes.
Right? Instead of just trusting, like hold that end vision that had that idea manifest for us and allow it to play out exactly as it was intended to. Which
you guys, and it came so easily.
Yeah.
It was like we were both downloading it at the same time, and we were just taking notes and just banter. Like it was just happening. It was just like back and forth. All of a sudden, boom, the course was done in a matter of like us sitting down with the notepad in my living room for like half an hour.
And I think it's just like interesting because we're telling how important it is to stay in the end, and we both had huge experiences where things have like totally quantum leapt for us in doing that. And then what we immediately start doing is getting into the control of it, getting into the how, trying to like manifest something other than what it was intended to be when it first came to us. So like we said, we're still in the practice of letting go. I don't think that ever goes away. You just gain more. It's like you gain more trust so that you're able to let go easier. Whereas like a year ago, I held on to desired outcomes with such tight fists, whereas now I can be like, oh yeah, I have to let go because my job is just to keep picturing the end, picture the end, right?
Yeah. It's simple, but it is difficult. Yeah. But it is simple. Go back to the simplicity.
Exactly. Okay, thank you guys so much for listening.
And we'll see you again very soon.
Bye. Thank you guys so much for spending a piece of your day with us and tuning into the Lo and Zo Show.
If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to rate it and share on social media. Be sure to tag us.
Until next time,
stay abundant.